any such place as America. We were black.
Come on, man, you know
That's 10 right there, dog. I know you ain't no snitch.
Hey, Corey, that boy brought his butt home yet?
He upstairs doing his chores.
Corey, get your butt!
The gods themselves want Rome reborn. They sent me.
Will Smith built a formula. Nicolas Cage built a bonfire. Denzel Washington built something harder to see and harder to copy. He built taste. Not taste in the way people usually mean it, not fashion or style, or knowing which restaurant to be seen at. Taste in the way an architect means it. Knowing which jobs to take, knowing which to turn down, knowing when to play the hero and when to play the villain, knowing when to go to the theatre and when to take the blockbuster. And doing this consistently for 4 decades without a single period where anyone could honestly say Denzel Washington had lost his way. Smith's career is a case study in strategy. Cage's career is a case study in chaos. Denzel's career is a case study in something rarer than either of those. It's a case study in judgement. And judgement is the hardest thing in the world to teach because it looks like instinct until you study it closely enough to realise it's actually discipline in disguise. This is the story of the actor who never made a wrong move and what that kind of perfection actually costs. Nicholas Kim Coppola changed his name to escape his family. Denzel Washington didn't have a famous family to escape. He had a preacher for a father and a beauty parlour owner for a mother in Mount Vernon, New York.
And I knew I was a movie star, and I came to my mother owned a beauty shop.
No Hollywood connections, no industry contacts, no trust fund. What he had was a 1.8 GPA and a leave of absence from Fordham University because he'd enrolled as a pre-med student and discovered pretty quickly that he had no interest in being a doctor. He's told this story a few times. He took a drama class almost by accident.
Do what you gotta do so that you can do what you want to do. I've just done what I wanted to do.
And something clicked. Not in the romantic way people describe it in interviews, more like a lock turning. He'd found the thing he was supposed to do. He transferred his energy into theatre, started performing, and landed a spot at the American Conservatory Theatre in San Francisco. Then he came back to New York and started grinding. This is the first thing that separates Denzel from both Smith and Cage. His foundation is the stage, not the screen. He came up performing live, 8 shows a week, in front of audiences who could see every micro-expression on his face. No second takes, no editing around a weak moment. The theatre teaches you something that film can never teach: how to hold a room with nothing but your presence and the words you've been given. And it gave him a relationship with a playwright named August Wilson that would shape his entire life. But we'll come back to that. His first real break on screen was the television show St. Elsewhere, which ran from 1982 to 1988. 6 seasons playing Dr. Philip Chandler. Steady work, good exposure, but not the kind of role that makes you a movie star. What it did was something more useful. It taught him how to be a professional on camera without burning out or becoming desperate. While he was still on the show, he made Glory. It's 1989. He plays Private Tripp, a formerly enslaved man fighting for the Union in the Civil War. The role isn't the lead, that's Matthew Broderick, but Denzel owns every scene he's in. There's a moment in the film where Tripp is whipped in front of his regiment and a single tear runs down his face while the rest of his expression stays locked in defiance. It's the kind of acting that makes you hold your breath. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He was 34 years old. And right here, at this exact moment, is where most actors make the decision that defines the rest of their career. This is the fork in the road. Will Smith, remember, hit this moment and immediately went to the data. What are the top 10 grossing films? What do they have in common? How do I become number 1?
If you don't fail, you're not even trying.
Cage hit this moment and started saying yes to everything. Action movies, indie experiments, whatever felt dangerous. Denzel did something different. He went looking for Harrison Ford's leftovers. There's a story, and whether it's perfectly true or slightly embellished doesn't really matter because it captures the strategy perfectly. Denzel reportedly told his agents early in his career, "Send me everything Harrison Ford is turning down or that he can't do." Think about what that means. He wasn't trying to be the black version of anyone. He was saying, I want the roles that are written for the most bankable white actor in Hollywood, and I want to prove that a black man can carry them just as hard. That's not just ambition, That's a positioning strategy disguised as a creative choice. And it worked. Not because Hollywood suddenly became fair, but because Denzel was so undeniably good that studios couldn't justify not casting him. The 90s is where the strategy really becomes visible. Look at the range of what he does in a single decade. Malcolm X in 1992, Spike Lee's 3-hour biographical epic, a role so demanding that Denzel reportedly stayed in character for months. Then Philadelphia in 1993, playing a homophobic lawyer opposite Tom Hanks in one of the first major studio films about AIDS. Then Courage Under Fire, The Preacher's Wife, The Siege, The Hurricane. Drama, thriller, romance, political film. Here's the pattern that nobody talks about. Denzel never does the same thing twice in a row. He alternates. A heavy dramatic role is followed by something lighter. A commercial film is followed by something personal. A hero is followed by something more ambiguous. It looks natural, but it's actually an incredibly disciplined rotation that keeps audiences from ever feeling like they've seen enough of him. And he never oversaturates. Will Smith was releasing a film every summer like clockwork. Cage was doing 4 movies a year. Denzel has always been selective. 1, sometimes 2 films a year, and some years, nothing at all. Scarcity creates value. Every time a new Denzel Washington film comes out, it feels like an event because he hasn't been grinding you down with his presence in between. But the real turning point, the moment that elevated Denzel from great actor to something closer to a cultural institution, was Training Day. It's 2001. Denzel Washington, the actor known for playing noble heroes, dignified leaders, and morally upright men, agrees to play a corrupt LAPD narcotics detective named Alonzo Harris, a villain. His first proper villain in over 20 years of acting. This was not an easy decision. And not just because it was a creative risk. The NAACP actually came to the set and questioned what he was doing.
Me and Russell Crowe getting in arguments on the set of American Gangster or...
Why would Denzel Washington, the man who'd played Malcolm X, who'd represented black excellence on screen for a generation, play a dirty cop? Wasn't he supposed to be a role model? And here's where you see the difference between Denzel's approach and Will Smith's. Smith avoided these roles entirely. He said it himself, he wanted to play the parts they'd give to Tom Cruise. He wanted black excellence, and he defined that as the hero. Always the hero. Denzel had the same instinct early on, but by 2001, he'd evolved past it. His response to the NAACP pressure, as Ethan Hawke later recounted, was essentially,
Al Pacino can play a bad guy. Gene Hackman can play a bad guy. I can't play a bad guy. I'm an artist. I lead by being great at my job, not by only playing squeaky clean people.
That's not just a defense of one role, that's a philosophy of artistic freedom. And it took enormous confidence to articulate it at a time when the expectations on black actors were very different from what they are today. He won the Oscar, Best Actor, and Ethan Hawke later said he knew Denzel would win it by day 3 of filming. The performance is that electric. Alonzo Harris is charming, terrifying, funny, and repulsive, sometimes within the same sentence. It's the role that proved Denzel could do anything, and that the audience would follow him anywhere. But what's really interesting about Training Day, from a career architecture perspective, is what he did afterward. He didn't become the villain guy. He didn't chase that energy. He played Alonzo, won the Oscar, proved the point, and then went back to his rotation. Drama, thriller, prestige project, commercial film. As if nothing had happened. As if proving you could play evil was just one more tool in the box, not an identity shift.
I'm a stage actor who does film. It's not the other way around. I did stage first.
And then there's the other half of Denzel Washington's career. The half that most film audiences barely know about, the theatre. In 2010, he returned to Broadway to star in August Wilson's Fences. Wilson had written 10 plays, each set in a different decade, exploring the African-American experience across the 20th century. Fences is set in the 1950s. Denzel plays Troy Maxson, a former Negro League baseball player now working as a garbage collector, wrestling with bitterness, love, and the walls he builds around the people closest to him. He won the Tony Award. And then he did something that might be the most Denzel Washington move of all. He spent years getting the film version made, directing it himself, with one non-negotiable condition inherited from Wilson. It had to have a black director. Studios had wanted to make the film for years. Wilson had refused unless that condition was met. Denzel honoured it. The film was nominated for 4 Oscars, and Viola Davis won Best Supporting Actress. But the real significance is bigger than any award. Denzel committed to producing film adaptations of all 10 of August Wilson's plays. He's using his position, his power, his name, his box office credibility to create hundreds of roles for black actors that wouldn't exist otherwise. He said it plainly. Because of all those people who laid the groundwork for me to be in the position I'm in, I'm going to make sure that there's hundreds of roles for the next generation. That's legacy thinking. Not career thinking, not brand thinking, legacy thinking. And it connects to something deeper about why Denzel's career has lasted the way it has. He's never been about Denzel Washington the brand, he's been about the work, and increasingly about the work that outlives him. Most actors approaching 70 start slowing down, taking fewer risks, resting on what they've already accomplished. Denzel is doing the opposite. In his late 60s, he played Macrinus in Gladiator II, an arms dealer, a power broker, a villain again, opposite actors half his age. He dominated every scene he was in, because of course he did. And then he went back to Broadway, Othello, the same role he played at 22, now performed at 70. He said, "I think I understand him better now. I know I understand him better now." There's something extraordinary about an actor returning to the same character across 50 years of life and bringing everything he's learned in between. He's laid out his endgame publicly. After Othello on stage, he's playing Hannibal for Antoine Fuqua, then a film with Steve McQueen, then a role Ryan Coogler is writing for him in Black Panther 3, then the film version of Othello, then King Lear, and then he's done. That's not a retirement. That's a final act, planned, deliberate, and designed to end at the peak, not trailing off into forgettable roles, but closing with Shakespeare, the way he started. So what does Denzel Washington's career actually teach us, especially set against Smith and Cage? Smith's career tells us that strategy without adaptability breaks. The formula worked until the world changed, and one uncontrolled moment exposed the fragility underneath. Cage's career tells us that chaos without strategy is survivable, even beautiful, but only if you have an almost supernatural commitment to the work itself, regardless of the outcome. Denzel's career tells us something different. It tells us that the most durable careers aren't built on formulas or chaos. They're built on taste, on the accumulating wisdom of 1,000 good decisions made one at a time over decades. No single choice looks dramatic from the outside. There's no formula you can point to and say, that's the secret.
When the devil comes at you, maybe it's because you're trying to do something right.
There's no spectacular crash that makes for a great story. There's just a man who showed up, made the right call more often than almost anyone else in his industry, and let the work speak for itself. That's boring compared to Smith's rise and fall or Cage's bonfire. It doesn't go viral, it doesn't become a meme. You can't summarize it in a single dramatic moment. But 40 years from now, when people list the greatest actors of this era, Denzel Washington will be at the top. Not because he had the best strategy, not because he had the wildest story, but because he had the best judgment. And judgment, unlike strategy and chaos, doesn't make for great headlines. It just makes for a great career. Will Smith needed the audience to love him. Nicolas Cage just needed a camera. Denzel Washington needed something harder to find than either of those. He needed to trust himself. And he did. Every single time. That's it for this season of Career Architecture. If you've watched all 3 episodes, you've seen 3 completely different approaches to the same question. How do you build a career that lasts? The answer, it turns out, depends entirely on who you are. Subscribe to Stunt Casting. We're just getting started.